We're going to take a quick look at using the titler within Adobe Premiere. We have a clip down here on the timeline of a young man bouncing a basketball and driving to the basket. So we're going to bring up his name and his team's logo. So I'm just going to position my playback head back here, and so I have some idea how the title's going to look. And I'm going to come over here to File, New, Title. What I'm going to do here when I name the title is I'm going to name it as a template, because I am going to build a template and then continue to build unique names from that template. So I'm just going to name this, let's say, Team Title. How about, yeah, Team Title Template. The template builder or panel comes up, and make sure you move it around and make sure you drag it out in the lower corner to make it bigger if it comes up really small. So I can see the video behind it here, and that's because up at the top here it says show background video. So if you didn't want to see the background video, you could turn that off. I'm going to turn it on so I make sure my title looks good on the video I have. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the menu under Title, and I'm going to come down to Graphic and Insert Graphic, and I'm going to bring in the team's logo. So let me scroll down here, and I just went up on the web and found the Thunder logo from Oak City and put this over here. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I want to be able to use some of the colors in that when I build my title, plus I'm going to incorporate it into my lower third title too. So over here we have some standard shapes: rectangle, rounded, cornered rectangles, ellipses and lines and all this. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to drag out a wedge, and I'm going to drag it out from the left edge over to, let's say, about that far, and I'll make it about this big. You could go back on the handles and kind of resize the wedge a little bit if you wanted to, change its width, but pretty much it's locked down in this wedge shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over on the right hand side, and there's a million commands over here, and I'm going to come over on the fill for this particular shape, and it's on a solid, and it's on solid white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to, let's say, a linear gradient. And then what I'm going to do is I have some little gradient stops here below this bar, and what we do with those gradient stops is we click on them once, and then I'm going to pick up the eyedropper, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say I'm going to pick up this orange color within the OKC logo. I'll come over on this little gradient stop, and I'm going to pick up a different color for that. Let's pick up the blue over here, and that looks pretty good. Over here where it says linear gradient, you can actually drag these stops around so you can influence how much of one color or another is being used within that gradient fill. You can also come over here and change the angle of the gradient. There's just a million things I can do. You can come down and you can add strokes to it, inner strokes, outside strokes. I think I'm going to keep it pretty simple here at this time. I'm going to take my mouse, I'm going to come over and I'm going to make sure I pick the arrow from my toolbox in the upper left, the selection tool. I'm going to bring the Thunder logo down here a little bit. I'm going to resize it. And notice I need to hold the shift key when I drag this, otherwise it will distort. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to come over here on, I'm going to click on it, move it up here. I should be able to arrange or bring it to the front. So let me try to right click. Not really sure why it's giving me that. So I'll come up here and see if I can't figure out why I can't bring that to the front. Click off, click on. Well, let me pause my video a second. Okay, got that figured out. With this selected, right click on it, and I'm going to come down to Arrange, and I'm going to bring it to the front. And I'll just drag it over here. And I'm going to reduce it down a little bit. Shift key down. And I'll put it over here, we'll say about this far. Okay, so that looks pretty good there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my type tool. I'm going to get some horizontal type. Click on the type tool. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type out, let's say, first and last. Remember, we're making a template now. And let me pull this down here. And I'm going to build a little contrast into this. This is the default font on my machine. Let me pick a little bit different style down here, maybe. Let's see what this looks like. You can, again, there's a million different fonts I can pick here and looks that are already done. You could build your own look over here on the right. I think I'll go ahead and use this one right here. I'm going to come over on the font size over here on the left, on the right, and I'm just going to bring down the size of that by dragging my mouse over the number a little bit. And I'll bring her down to, in fact, I'll type it into maybe 80. And that gives me enough room to come over. If I need to add a longer name, I can go out here quite far. So there's going to be my template right there. So I built in my logo. I used the shape, filled it with a gradient, used some text here. I'm pretty happy with this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what happens when you close this. So I'm going to close out of the titler, and it automatically keeps a copy of that down here. Now, I'm going to build it for my different team members. So the way you do that is once you build it, I'm going to double click. And the key thing here is to go up to the upper left corner. There's a little icon up here that has a T, and it says make a new title based upon the current title. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go ahead and put in my player, because you're going to want to make one unique one for each player. Okay, so I'm going to type in a name here. I'll type in James Thompson, click OK. And then really the only thing I have to do is come down here and select this type and type in my player. So James Thompson right there. And I'll go back to my arrow, take a look at it. Looks really good. I probably don't want to move it up or down or anything. I might change the size if I had a longer name. But the real secret of this is when you set up a template, maybe you put in the longest first name of the player you have and the longest last name and combine them on there, so you make sure you have the template that has maximum room for all the longest names combined. So really all I got to do is just change that. And so I'm going to go ahead and close it out. So now I have a unique title over here for James Thompson. I'm just going to bring this over here. I'm going to put it on the track above my video. Looks pretty doggone good. And I can determine how long I want to keep it up. Let's see, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. That's probably long enough. Right now I'm going to take my selection arrow I have in my toolbox here. I'm going to click on this, and let's say right now I'm going to move it down so about, I don't know. Let me take my playhead here and not even guess. I'll pull it in to about a second or so, and that's when I want this title to be on screen. So just like we talked about moving objects onto the screen within moving graphics in different video clips, we're going to do the same thing with the title. I'm going to make sure it's selected. I'm going to change my view down to maybe 25% so I have a little bit better side view of what's going on here. I'm going to actually double click on the title, and that's going to put it into a mode where I can drag it around with the handles. So at this point in time, this is when I want to have this actually on screen. So I'm going to go over here to Effects. I'm going to turn on Motion. I'm going to click Position and Scale, and that's just going to remember those 2 keyframes. And I'm going to make it so it takes about let's say a second to come on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to move the playhead back a little bit. Move my time back here, move my item back here a little bit. And that's where I'm going to have it start off screen. So I'm going to double click, I'm going to drag it over. And right there. And so Premiere has remembered the first keyframes. And so if we just hit the play, it's going to come on with Thompson. And then it's going to go away. Remember, one more thing you can do is if you want to, you can add a fade out to this title. One way to do that is you can go over into the effects in the panel down here, and I can come over here and find a transition to dissolve, and I'll say cross dissolve. And I'm just going to add a cross dissolve to the end of this actual title clip, and I'll move it right over here. We can kind of watch the end of it here, and it fades off. So bring her back to home, hit the play, comes on, looks great. It goes off the screen just before he starts to drive to the basket, and we're all set. If I wanted to make another one, remember, just to review, go back to your project panel, double click on the team title template, come to the upper left corner, click on a new title based upon a current title, give it the player's name so you know exactly who this is, and then just come down in here with your type tool and highlight the text and just type in the name of the player. You're all done. Now I'm going to close it out, and then I have Jeff's title right here that I can pull over. So there's just a little method of going ahead and making a title and building a template, and then continue to build a unique name for every player off that particular template.